When it comes to the realm of sidekicks and understudies, the immediate response is almost always going to be Luigi. I'm sure he needs no explanation, and to be honest, I did play a slew of Mario games as a kid like anyone else, but I never really liked the Mario Brothers franchise as much as everyone else did. I was a Donkey Kong man, and above all else, a Banjo and Kazooie connoisseur. And in the Banjo and Kazooie universe lies one of my favorite characters, and, as the title suggests, an underrated and almost forgotten understudy to the evil witch Gruntilda. So sit back and relax, because today we are talking about Klungo. Unfortunately for the Game Boy game fans and Nuts and Bolts fans, I'm not going to be mentioning those stories for this one, as to me, the true canon of the game is just Banjo and Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie. So with that being established, let's start with Banjo and Kazooie and sort of who Klungo was supposed to be as a character that originally wasn't supposed to have any sort of character development at all. In Banjo and Kazooie, we see Klungo only a few times through cutscenes, and he even has his portrait scattered around on some levels. At first, he seems to just be this goofy, ancillary character with bad grammar that was simply designed to blindly help and follow Grunty, but to me, there always seemed to be more behind this unappreciated green monster that was the brains behind all of Grunty's contraptions. And Rareware must have thought so too, as in the next installment, Klungo got the character arc he finally deserved. At the end of Banjo and Kazooie, and basically the start to Banjo-Tooie, we immediately see the faithful Klungo trying to budge the boulder that fell on Grunty after the fight with Banjo and Kazooie. And as funny as it seems at first, the start of Banjo-Tooie basically begins with Klungo explaining how he has been desperately trying for 2 straight years to budge the boulder off his mistress. I mean, come on, imagine spending 2 entire years of your life trying to dig your leader out of a grave. Talk about loyalty. And this could have been the end of it right here, but Rare saw an opportunity here to showcase a leader and follower dynamic that really didn't have to be here, but just made the game even more memorable to me. You'd figure after being buried alive for 2 years, Grunty would have been a little grateful to Klungo for trying to save her for the entire period, but as you would have guessed from a bony evil witch lady, she's not grateful in the slightest and is only frustrated at how long it took and the current state of her beauty is in. Grunty quickly hatches up a plan for her, skin condition, which is fairly similar to Banjo and Kazooie's plot, only this time her sisters and Klungo are all expected to do the dirty work, mostly poor Klungo here. Klungo's introduction in the beginning is supposed to be indicative of the clear direction change Tooie had from Banjo and Kazooie. And as a kid, I was honestly pretty excited I finally got to see this guy in action. In Banjo-Kazooie, the game is much simpler and straightforward, mostly focusing on collecting and platforming, saving the main boss battle for the end. This was supposed to throw you for a loop because you immediately have to face Grunty's top henchman, our pal Klungo, and a slew of other bosses throughout Tooie. Some fans honestly dislike Tooie due to the huge changes in direction, but I personally always loved it, and it always felt like a great expansion to the Banjo and Kazooie universe. Maybe I can save that for a topic for another video. Our first fight with Klungo is obviously the easiest of the 3 with him, and can be easily completed by just running around and shooting some eggs at him, but I just love the idea of this goofy guy somehow being like a mad scientist with all of his different inventions and potions, all while willingly getting beaten by Grunty for all of his failures. I honestly feel like you really don't see this kind of goofy character writing these days, at least not in games considered for all ages. The placement of the fights with Klungo are also in a good order for the game, as the second is sort of in the middle of the game and the final fight is pretty much towards the end. This second encounter with Klungo doesn't have as much exposition as the others, although he looks a bit more beaten up than usual, but I think that's attributed to how the overall flow of Banjo-Tooie goes. I always loved this game because of how each level and boss fight was sort of set up. Instead of Banjo-Kazooie, where you just have to get the right amount of collectibles to move forward, or like Donkey Kong 64, where you have to beat every boss fight to get to the end, Tui is like a combination of both, where you really only have to complete what you want to in order to beat the game, aside from the Klungo boss fights. That's why I feel like Klungo is a more important staple character than some believe, because he's sort of forgotten as the 3 main points you have to get through in order to beat the game. After playing through this game after so long, I really forgot the freedom such a simple game offered. Just like I said in the Portal 2 video, games like this feel unique because they have this personality about them and you really can tackle just about any obstacle with whatever wacky solution the game offers. The last fight with Klungo was honestly pretty difficult to me as a kid, but was always my favorite of all the boss fights because it was just hilarious to me and still is. I mean, just look at our poor man Klungo over here. He's like a battered housewife from the 1940s. Even his title name for this one says Career Questioning Minion. And I don't know if he chose to jump from the ceiling or if Grunty just threw him down there, but either way, seeing this weird looking green monster thing fall out of the ceiling still makes me laugh. But I think that's what makes these games a mastercraft in writing, because you can just immediately apply this sense of imagination to every situation with almost every character. Klungo went from just being this green guy who helps Grunty to being this determined and loyal character who has just had enough by this point. And I mean, who can blame him? I'm with you, Klungo. We are all looking for better prospects, and we are all tired of our toxic bosses. Which brings me to another great point these games had, and it was these little lessons you learn from every different situation. Klungo was honestly a character that taught me to never give too much to someone that doesn't appreciate you, and I think that's a huge message to come from such a simple game. What honestly gave me this idea was watching the episode of Smiling Friends with Gwimbly. Like I said, Klungo was just some minion to Grunty, but underneath it all, he had goals, aspirations, and apparently a wife and all. Which is why it made me happy he kind of got a good ending at the end of Tui. The imagination people have and can apply to such a simple character is incredible, and that's why I feel like Klungo and characters like Klungo deserve more respect. After Klungo has turned over a new leaf, maybe he could have gotten his own game. Maybe we could have seen a game with Mrs. Klungo. This is the kind of imagination I wish would come from more games these days, as I feel like a lot of games just do the thinking for you. Well, I'm sorry I'm wrapping this video up a little quicker than usual, and I'm sorry it took a bit longer for me to get out. Honestly, I took a lot of time playing through both Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie for this video because they really mean a lot to me, and they were probably some of the first games I'd ever played in my life. Plus, I really wanted to try and get the message across that we need more character writing like this these days. In all of my years on YouTube, I don't think I've ever seen a video on my boy Klungo here. Maybe one of these days, we will finally see a Banjo 3 or something, and Klungo can make his grand return, but until then, I guess this short video can sort of enshrine him. Well, again, I'm sorry guys, but that's gonna be about it for this one. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more random content like this one. See ya.